Okay, so quick reminder Darwin's evolutionary framework has tenets in it which are basically non controversial. Number one, the variation, traits vary among individuals. Two, heritability, some of that variation is inherited. Three, adaptation, that means that some individuals who have more beneficial traits that are inherited survive better than others, and then therefore they reproduce more. That leads to natural selection, which is differential survival and reproduction. Basically, meaning that more individuals with successful traits survive and reproduce into the next generation, and they breed together and produce more with even more successful traits. And that leads to five, which is evolutionary change, which basically means that those with heritable traits that are successful become a larger part of the population, and traits of less successful individuals are lost. So, if none of the tenets of evolution are really controversial, why is evolution controversial? A lot of the reason is just misunderstanding. Sometimes it's non scientists that misunderstand natural selection. The media is not helpful, as the media does tend to be less and less helpful these days. There are plenty of poorly written articles suggesting that evolution is somehow magical or made up, not communicating what evolution actually is. An example of this is the linking of artificial selection and natural selection. Natural selection, of course, is what evolution does. Artificial selection is the kind of change that is chosen by humans, right? Selective force imposed by humans. And humans always have a specific goal in mind. Maybe we want a smaller dog that can chase rabbits, or maybe we want a larger, faster dog that can chase down deer. But our goals are not something that is shared by natural selection. Natural selection is a force that works only generation by generation. It only cares about who, in this particular generation, survives and reproduces the best. And that means that it can actually lead species into disaster quite easily because there's no planning involved. There's no thought processes. You'll read a lot of articles where they suggest that evolution chose to do this, or evolution is pushing the boundaries in this way. Evolution doesn't work that way. Another misunderstanding is that evolution is a theory about the origin of life. If you remember the tenets of evolution, you remember that it already presupposes life and presupposes variation that is heritable in that life. There are plenty of people who are actually looking at how life began, but evolutionary scientists aren't those people. Another misconception is that evolution means that life changed by chance, basically thinking that it's random changes that make up all of evolution. Random changes are necessary for some trait variation. Some mutations are completely random. But natural selection acts only on traits that are beneficial, or, of course, traits that are not beneficial. The idea here is it's a bunch of changes that might or might not happen in a giant string of DNA. Think of it like this. If you had a book of the entire collection of William Shakespeare and you changed one or two words or even one or two paragraphs, what's the likelihood that you're going to make it better? That's the kind of requirement that would mean that natural selection would act upon it. Most of those random changes are tiny and small and not even noticed. And when they are noticed in the way that they produce a trait that is visible, they're less likely to be beneficial than they are to be harmful. In either way, to say that evolution happens by chance ignores half of the picture. Half of the picture is this random mutation, half of it is natural selection. Of course, the biggest misconception is that evolution and religion are incompatible. This is problematic in many ways because it taps into a lot of people's very dearly held beliefs. But the fact is that evolution and religion are not incompatible at all. Many who study religion believe in evolution or subscribe to the tenets of the scientific method which tell us that evolution happens. And many scientists are deeply religious, and they don't feel that there is any conflict there. The misconception that you have to choose between science and religion is divisive and incorrect. One way to think about it is that religion really studies those occurrences that occur outside of the natural world. That is, it's specifically about the supernatural. Science requires replicable, testable, measurable data. And that means that anything that is supernatural is quite outside the scope of what can be studied through the scientific method. So scientists can only look at those things in the natural world with natural causes. Evolution is one of those things. We can test it. We could falsify it. That's one of the most important things. To be a testable theory, it has to be falsifiable. Evolution would be easily falsifiable if, for example, we just found a fossil that's in the wrong place. We would have to adjust our theory. That hasn't happened up to this point.